So welcome to an episode of I Can Make That, which is my new show where I feature making food that you wouldn't normally associate with making on a griddle, but I attempt to try to figure out a way to make it anyway. So for our first episode today, we are going to make a chicken pot pie. So come join me. So to begin with, for our chicken pot pie recipe, I'm going to be using a cast iron skillet on the griddle in order to make our filling. But I'm only going to use that for the filling. I'm going to start by throwing the chicken on the griddle itself to let that cook. So you might be wondering, how in the world are we going to make the chicken pot pie on here and actually get it to cook all the way through? So we are going to do hand pies for this chicken pot pie. So I'm going to make the filling, and then we're going to go in and take that filling and actually put it inside of a hand pie, and then we'll come out and cook those hand pies on the griddle. So I've got my chicken going. While that cooks, I'm going to go ahead and throw some butter in my pan here. Let that start to melt. So as that butter starts to melt, I'm going to go ahead and throw in my onions. I basically got about 3/4 cups of chopped onion there, and then about a 1/2 cup of chopped celery. We're going to let this cook down just a little bit. We don't want them caramelized necessarily, but we do want them soft because we don't want any super crunchy vegetables in the pie. Okay, my chicken looks like it's getting close to being done here. I'm going to pull it off the heat real quick. Go ahead and turn that heat down. And then I'm going to chop this into really small cubes. I want them to be real small for a hand pie. That way you can actually fit more chicken inside a pie. It's not these huge chunks of chicken inside the pie. And I'm going to go ahead and throw in, I've got about a tablespoon here of fresh thyme that I just took from my herb garden right over there. I don't think you can see it, but I've got a fresh herb garden over there. So there's some thyme. We're going to throw that in there. That's one of those herbs that really gives the chicken pot pie its flavor. In there. Go ahead and season it with some salt and pepper. Alright, I'm starting to smell that thyme in there. You can see that there's just starting to get a little bit of color to my vegetables. So I'm going to go ahead, and I've got about 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour here. I'm going to put that in. And that's going to thicken everything up here with all that butter and everything. Kind of stir that in, let it start to thicken. So now we're going to throw in about 1 cup and 3/4 of chicken stock, not chicken broth, chicken stock. Start stirring that up here. Make sure that flour dissolves really well into that stock. And we're going to throw in about, I think this is about a 1/2 cup, about a 1/2 cup of whole milk. Okay. That's going to give you that creaminess that you're looking for. That's starting to bubble a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and throw in, I've got about 3/4 cup of frozen peas and carrots that I'm going to throw in. Those are my favorite part of a chicken pot pie, is the peas and carrots. And I might as well go ahead and throw in my chicken. Alright, so you can see we're about at that point where it's starting to coat the back of the spoon. I'll go ahead and give this a little taste. Excellent. It's delicious. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this off the heat. And I can actually go ahead and turn this off because we're done with it for a little while. Because at this point, this needs to cool. You need to let it cool almost completely. Okay? So we're going to let this sit in here and cool down. It's going to continue to thicken up as it cools down. And when it gets completely cooled down, which could take about a half hour or more, once that happens, we'll be able to start forming our pie crusts and pie shells, and we'll be able to fill our pies. So I'm going to take this back inside, and we'll fill our pies, and then we'll come back and cook them right on here. All right, so let's do that. Okay, so as you can see, the filling has cooled down nicely. It's thickened up nicely. So we're now going to go ahead and make our pies with our pie crust. And I'm just using a pre-made pie crust today. You could of course make a homemade one, but I'm just not going to go through that effort today because this is kind of a big experiment, and I figured a few less things could go wrong if I just use a store-bought. So we're going to beat an egg here because we're going to have an egg wash that's going to help hold our hand pies together. Okay, so like I said, we're going to just use a pre-made pie crust today. So I've got my Pillsbury pie crust straight out of the grocery store. I'm just going to use one for right now. So first things first is we've got to get this rolled out nicely, which they always stick right here at the beginning. Once you get them going, they usually go pretty good. So we're gonna roll this baby out here. Try to get it as flat as possible. Okay. Fill in any holes made, trying to pull it apart. So I bought this fancy little hand pie maker. I've actually bought a couple different kinds. I've got a rectangle one, and I also have these fancy round ones. Okay, so you could make a couple different shapes. These are really cheap to find online. I'm gonna try the rectangle shape today just because I like the rectangle shape. The nice thing about this is you use the outside as a cutter. So we can actually cut two crusts here. There's one. And I'll go ahead and do another one. So now that we have our pie crusts here, we're gonna start filling. So I can take this that I just cut out here, and I'm gonna form it down into this mold. Make sure there's some edge sticking up because that's what you're gonna use to seal it together. And then we're gonna fill it. Now you don't wanna overfill this, because if you put too much in there, it's going to kind of fall apart when you try to put it on the griddle. So that looks pretty good. So now we're gonna take our egg wash. I'm just gonna use a little brush here to do this. Kind of go around the outside here. Then we're gonna take our, and we should be able to kind of do a little bit, and then we should be able to use this to kind of press it and seal it. Look at that, it looks pretty good. So you can see there's my one that I made. I'm gonna go ahead and make the rest of these here, and then we'll head on back out to the griddle and cook them. Okay, so the last step before we put these on the griddle is to give them one more final egg wash on the top. And like I said, that's just gonna kind of help get them nice and brown. I did try, as you could probably see here, my round mold, and it busted right out the back of that. I'm gonna have to practice with the round mold a little more, but I tried to band-aid it up here a little bit. Let's see how that works. I'm not sure if it's salvageable or not, but we'll give it a shot. We'll make it work. Okay, so here we are back out on the griddle, and this is getting heated up. So I'm gonna go ahead and set my egg wash to the side here and get these on. So I egg washed one side, so I'm gonna be sure I put that side down. You need to be careful, these are very delicate before they get cooked. So be very careful with them so that they hopefully don't bust open on you. So now that I have those down, I do want to egg wash the other side of them, because we are going to flip them eventually. I do want to treat these kind of like they're baking in an oven. And in order to simulate that, I am going to cover them. So hopefully they get like some of that temperature inside of them, so it's like they're baking. I turned the heat all the way down to low because they had already gotten up to, the griddle had already gotten hot. They were already starting to kind of sizzle a little bit. Like I said, you don't want to overcook, but you want that pie shell to cook all the way through. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and flip the first one here. All right, not bad looking. Doesn't look too bad at all. See, that one's got a little bust at the seam, so does this one. But these ones right here all look like they're doing pretty good. Actually, the round one looks okay too. Looks like it's not doing too bad. This one's moving all over the place, so we'll have to see how that works out. Okay, I'm going to say that we're probably about here we are. We got our chicken pot pies here. So let's give them a try. Let's see how they turned out. So first off, I can pick them up, even though this one's even a little busted open there. It picks up nicely. It doesn't leak out or anything. So that's pretty good. Okay. So my favorite part of a chicken pot pie is the crust. I love that gooey filling. I love the flavor, but I really love that flaky crust to go with it. This accomplishes that flaky crust all the way around. And you still get that gooey filling inside. You get those vegetables and that chicken. I would say this is a definite win. You can see it's not overstuffed, okay? I do think a couple of them were overfilled, which is why they were falling apart. But even this one, which did fall apart a little bit, like I said, you can see there that it's kind of busted open a little bit. It's not leaking out. So it really does hold up pretty well. I even got myself a fork here because I was prepared for it to not hold up and I would have to eat it with a fork, which would have been fine too. But this is actually really good and it's holding up really well. This is delicious. So I'm going to definitely say that this experiment with the pie was a win. There would be a couple things I'd do different. Mostly it would be around not filling it up so much. But I think everything else worked out perfectly. It went really well, and actually didn't take too long. I think the longest part was waiting for the filling to cool down so that you could put it in the pie crust. So I definitely think that you guys should give it a shot. I'd love to see if you guys do give it a shot. I'll put the recipe down in the description that I used. That way you can follow it and maybe make your own or do some other type of pie. Let me know what kind of pie that you're making. I'd love to give some other type of pies a try. I hope you guys enjoy this new show format. I'm trying out some new things. I've been experimenting on the Blackstone. People ask me all the time, why do you make that on the Blackstone when you could just as easily make it inside on the oven? And I say, the Blackstone's so versatile, you can make so much on it. I kind of enjoy the challenge of trying to see what can I cook on it. And so finding these obscure foods that you almost never would have think that would be made on a griddle, it's kind of fun to try them out and to see if I can make it on a griddle. So I've already done lasagna. If you haven't seen my video for that, go check out in my videos. I have a video on lasagna rolls that I made. Now I've made chicken pot pie. If there are any other foods that you'd like for me to try out making that wouldn't normally be made on a Blackstone, then leave a comment below and let me know what you think that I should try to make. And I'll see if I can figure out a way to make it. I think it'll be a lot of fun to try out these different foods. And I want to take it beyond just putting a a pot on the Blackstone and cooking it that way. Let's see if we can actually step it up a notch and maybe reinvent some of these foods, kind of like I did here, to make it a little more fun and a little bit more worthwhile on making on a griddle. So if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. It really does help me out a lot. I'm up to over 1,000 subscribers, which is fantastic. I'd like to get it up more. And of course, like this video, share it. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And if you're interested, I have a Teespring store. The link for that is down in the description. And so you're welcome to support me in that way. Anything that you use to help support me is going to go straight back into the channel and to me thinking of new things to do and new ideas and new ways to cook, trying to be a little different than everybody else out there that's doing these cooking channels. So thanks for all y'all's support, and I'll see you next time.